The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days, but that wasn't what kept Marcus awake at night. It was the memory of her face, weathered and kind, with eyes that held more stories than he'd ever know, that haunted him in the darkness of his downtown Chicago apartment. He'd walked past her 1,000 times, maybe more, always in a hurry, always with somewhere important to be. She was just part of the landscape. Another homeless person with a cardboard sign. Another problem too big for him to solve, until the day she saved his life. Marcus Chen had built his entire identity around success. At 32, he was the youngest senior analyst at Whitmore and Associates, drove a Tesla he couldn't quite afford, and lived in a high-rise that screamed achievement to anyone who cared to listen. His parents had immigrated from Taiwan with nothing but hope and determination, working double shifts at their restaurant to put him through college. He'd made it. He'd become everything they'd dreamed of, everything America promised to those willing to work hard enough. But success, he was learning, could be the loneliest achievement of all. It was a Tuesday morning when everything changed. Marcus was running late for a presentation that could make or break his promotion to vice president. His phone was pressed against his ear, his other hand balancing a briefcase and coffee, his mind racing through spreadsheets and talking points. He didn't see the car running the red light, didn't hear the screech of tires on wet pavement. But she did. The impact never came. Instead, Marcus found himself sprawled on the sidewalk. His coffee splattered across the concrete, his phone shattered beside him. The car roared past, missing him by inches. And standing over him, breathing hard, was the woman he'd walked past every single day for the past 2 years. "You okay, honey?" she asked, extending a weathered hand to help him up. Marcus stared at her, his heart hammering in his chest. She was older than he'd realized, maybe 60, maybe 70, with silver hair tied, back with a rubber band, and clothes that had seen better decades. Her shopping cart of belongings stood a few feet away, everything she owned in the world visible in those overstuffed plastic bags. You pushed me out of the way," Marcus stammered, accepting her hand. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "Couldn't let you get yourself killed over a phone call? Now could I?" She smiled, and Marcus noticed she was missing 2 front teeth. Those things can wait. Life can't. Before he could respond, she'd already turned back to her spot on the corner, settling down onto her piece of cardboard, as if she'd just done nothing more remarkable than open a door. Marcus stood there in his $1,000 suit covered in coffee, watching her arrange her belongings, with a careful dignity that made something in his chest ache. He was 2 hours late to his presentation. He lost the promotion, and he couldn't stop thinking about her. Her name, he learned over the following weeks, was Eleanor. She'd been a teacher once, in a small town in Ohio. She'd had a husband, a daughter, a house with a garden where she grew tomatoes every summer. Then the cancer came, not hers, but her husband's. The medical bills piled up faster than she could count them. The house went first, then the savings, then everything else. Her husband died anyway, and grief did what illness couldn't. It broke her completely. Her daughter, overwhelmed by her own struggles, had stopped returning calls years ago. "That's life, honey," Eleanor told him one evening when Marcus brought her dinner from the Thai place. "Around the corner, it doesn't always go the way you plan. You just keep moving forward." Marcus started bringing her meals regularly. At first, he told himself it was simply repaying a debt. She'd saved his life, after all. But somewhere along the way, those visits became the part of his day he looked forward to most. Eleanor had a way of seeing the world that made his problems feel smaller, his achievements feel less important, and his life feel somehow both more fragile and more precious. "You work too hard," she'd tell him, watching him check his phone between bites of pad thai. "What are you running toward so fast?" He didn't have a good answer. The turning point came on a Friday night in December. Marcus was leaving the office late, as usual, when he saw the crowd gathered on Eleanor's corner. His stomach dropped. He pushed through the people to find Eleanor on the ground, her breathing shallow, her skin ashen. Someone had called an ambulance, but in Chicago traffic on a Friday night, who knew when it would arrive? "Eleanor!" Marcus dropped to his knees beside her, his hand finding hers. "Stay with me. Help is coming." Her eyes fluttered open. "Silly boy," she whispered. "I'm old. This happens. Not tonight, it doesn't." Marcus stayed with her in the emergency room, then threw her admission to the cardiac unit. The doctors said she'd had a heart attack, likely not her first. Her heart was weak, her body worn down by years of living on the streets. She needed rest, medication, proper care. She needed things Marcus realized the hospital would provide for a few days. And then she'd be right back on that corner, waiting for the next crisis to finish what this one had started. He made a decision that night that would change everything. "Come stay with me," Marcus said the next morning when Eleanor was awake and arguing with the nurses. "Just until you're better. I have a spare bedroom." Eleanor's laugh turned into a cough. "Honey, I'm not your responsibility." "Maybe not, but you're my friend. And friends don't let friends live on the street when they have a spare bedroom sitting empty." She cried then, and Marcus pretended not to notice, giving her the dignity of her tears. Eleanor moved into his apartment the following week. It was supposed to be temporary, just a few weeks while she recovered. But temporary has a way of becoming permanent when you stop counting the days. Eleanor's presence transformed Marcus's sterile apartment into something that felt dangerously close to a home. She cooked meals with whatever was in his mostly empty fridge, creating feasts from ingredients he didn't know could work together. She left books from the library on the coffee table with passages underlined that she thought he should read. She asked him about his day and actually listened to the answers. "You know what your problem is?" Eleanor asked him one night over dinner. "You've been so busy trying to prove you're successful that you forgot to figure out what success actually means to you." The words hit harder than Marcus wanted to admit. He started making changes, small ones at first, leaving work at reasonable hours, volunteering at the community center on weekends, calling his parents more often, then bigger ones. He took Eleanor to visit the daughter who'd disappeared from her life, acting as mediator in a reunion, so tender and painful that all three of them ended up crying on a porch in Indianapolis. He used his financial skills to help other homeless individuals navigate the bureaucratic nightmare of social services and housing applications. He discovered that the competence he'd developed climbing the corporate ladder could be just as valuable helping people climb out of the cracks society had let them fall through. His colleagues thought he'd lost his mind. His boss suggested he refocus his priorities. His mother worried. He was throwing away everything they'd worked for. But Eleanor understood. "You're becoming the man you were always meant to be," she told him. "Success isn't about how high you climb. It's about who you bring with you." A year after Eleanor moved in, Marcus's apartment became the unofficial headquarters for a nonprofit. He'd started a program connecting homeless individuals with volunteer financial advisors, helping them navigate the complex path back to stability. Eleanor ran the front desk, greeting every person who walked through the door with the same kindness she'd shown a desperate businessman running toward a speeding car. The morning Eleanor died, she was sitting in her favorite chair by the window, watching the sunrise paint the Chicago skyline in shades of gold and pink. Marcus found her there, peaceful, a smile on her lips and a book of poetry open in her lap. The grief hit him like a physical thing, doubling him over with its weight. But in the weeks and months that followed, as Marcus worked through his pain, he realized something profound. Eleanor hadn't just saved his life that rainy Tuesday morning. She'd taught him how to live it. She'd shown him that kindness wasn't a transaction, that worth wasn't measured in salaries and promotions, that the truest form of success was the impact you had on the lives you touched. At Eleanor's memorial service, held in the community center that had become her second home, more than 200 people showed up. Former students from Ohio, people she'd helped on the streets, volunteers from the nonprofit, and Marcus's own family, who'd come to love her as their own. Each person had a story about her kindness, her wisdom, her unshakable belief in the fundamental goodness of people. Marcus stood at the front of the room, looking out at all the lives Eleanor had touched, and he finally understood what she'd been trying to teach him all along. We save each other. Every day, in ways large and small, we have the power to pull someone out of the path of speeding cars, literally or metaphorically. The only question is whether we're paying enough attention to see when someone needs saving. Her name was Eleanor, Marcus began, his voice steady despite the tears on his cheeks. But to me, she was always just her. The woman on the corner I almost didn't see. The person I almost let become invisible. She saved my life twice, once from a car I wasn't watching for, and once from a life I wasn't really living. He paused, looking down at the program in his hands, at Eleanor's picture, smiling up at him. She used to tell me that we're all just walking each other home. I didn't understand what she meant then, but I do now. We're all on the same journey, facing the same struggles, trying to find our way through the darkness. And the only thing that makes it bearable, the only thing that makes it beautiful, is that we don't have to do it alone. Marcus looked up, meeting the eyes of people who'd been strangers a year ago and were family now. So here's what I'm asking. See each other. Really see each other. The person on the corner, the colleague you pass in the hallway, the neighbor you wave to but never talk to. We're all her. We're all him. We're all just people trying to find our way home. And sometimes, saving someone's life is as simple as stopping long enough to really see them. The rain started again as people filed out of the memorial service, soft and gentle, washing the city clean. Marcus stood in the doorway, watching people hug goodbye, exchange phone numbers, promise to stay in touch. Eleanor would have loved this, he thought. All these connections, all these people choosing to see each other.